Ascension forecast for Sunday, January 14th to Saturday, January 20th. Okay, so last week we had this big old build-up to a very heavy, very weighted, very dark and funky new moon in Capricorn that popped off on the 11th. I think many of us are still feeling that weight, feeling that funk, feeling that heaviness, although we will be feeling lighter vibrations sink in here very shortly. That was definitely a new moon in Capricorn in all of its glory, all of its heaviness, all of its weight, was very necessary to kind of defrag the darker parts of self. And of course, that new moon in Capricorn anchored in the timelines and the new version of self that we began to integrate back on the solstice energy of the 21st of December. So as I'm coming to you live here Friday evening, first of all, thank you so much for being here. Secondly, we haven't seen it as of yet, but tomorrow, the 13th, we do have Mercury re-entering into Capricorn energy, which of course is a little bit of a flashback to December 1st. That's when Mercury first entered into Capricorn energy. Of course, we retrograded at that 8 degrees in Capricorn energy. We shifted all the way back into Sag energy. And of course, we went direct January 1st, 22 degrees, 11 minutes of Sagittarius energy. So we've done this before. We're retracing our steps. We have a bigger, broader perspective, a deeper understanding this time around. And so even though our narrative is going to get a little bit serious, somber, even though negative Nancy, Debbie Downer are coming back out to play, we are going to be able to override these narratives, these darker thoughts, this particular inner dialogue much quicker, much easier, and really provide a lot of more greater insight and clarity to some of the things that we were very, very confused about even back in December. So of course, we're still looking forward to that particular energy shift. And as always, when we have a planet at the 29th degree of any sign preparing to go into the next, there's always a little bit of extra added pressure. And of course, our headspace is just throbbing, just a bumping, just a pounding, and trying to kind of move out of that new moon funk has been quite a challenge. So we're definitely going to be in a different perspective, different mood, different attitude, just in a couple of days. So we definitely have to hang in there. So what do we got going on this week, you may ask? Well, these are the final days of Capricorn season. Thank goodness. Now, granted, we are going to have to be a little bit more patient. There is going to be a little bit more rumbling, shakings underneath our feet, so to speak, as we wrap up these last days of Capricorn season. We do have the first quarter moon taking place in Aries energy on the 17th, which is definitely going to get a fire under our ass and in our heart space to take action, to make moves, to build ourselves up in this new identity, to be bold, to be brave, to be courageous, to be inspired and motivated to make a change. We're definitely going to see a little bit more of a pep in our step come the 17th. And it is prepping us, preparing us for the 20th. Major day here on the 20th. Not only do we have the Sun and Pluto conjunct at a 29 degree in Capricorn energy, the Sun moves into Aquarius season, Pluto moves into Aquarius just hours later. It is going to be a major day. And as we kind of get to this shift in energy, things are going to feel very, very shaky, very uncertain, very unstable. And a lot of that is because we're in a very interesting time period where essentially we are lifting off, so to speak. We are rising up, rising above. But it does take a little bit of extra effort to get our feet off of the ground, so to speak. And we are going to be flying high, and we're going to be in an accelerated time period come the 20th. We'll unpack that here in just a second. Before I jump into all the Ascension symptoms that we will likely be experiencing throughout the energy shifts of this week, I just want to take a moment to thank you. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for liking, for sharing, for commenting. Thank you for dropping beautiful emojis in the comment section below. Thank you for jumping over to Patreon, giving that free membership a good go. There's been lots of content out there in the last couple of days. I'm hoping that whether you are a free member or a paid subscriber, that you're taking advantage of those resources. We definitely have a lot going on, a lot to unpack, a lot to prepare for, and I am trying my best to put out the resources needed in order for us to stay focused, to stay grounded, to stay in the right mind frame. Speaking of resources, you may or may not have noticed, depending on YouTube and whether they're pushing my content to the people that have said, yes, I've subscribed, I want to see it. I don't know how the algorithm is doing as of late. My channel is a little bit wonky, but I did put out a 2024 overview of the year ahead. It's a 3-parter. As I come to you here Friday evening, only 2 parts have been released. The 3rd will be released tomorrow morning. I'm not trying to be mysterious in doing so, but I do have to stagger all of my content so that YouTube doesn't bury it. So I appreciate your patience on that. But yeah, I broke the whole year down, and then we went in month by month. We talked about the highs, the lows, what we can expect, what we can kind of expect to manifest on the greater, grander global stage, what that means for us in our individual lives. And I hope that it is a resource that not only helps you in the here and now to kind of prepare you for what it is that we're about to move into, but a resource that you will kind of reference back to over the course of the year and kind of check in, see whether or not you're in alignment with the energy, what had already transpired and what is still yet to come. So I thank you so much for tuning in to those particular videos. It is something that takes a lot of time to kind of map out, but I'm hoping that at least we touched on the highlights, the highs, the lows, the everything in between, in order for us to all stay on the same page. Very important year. We have a lot of important, let's call them hoops, that we need to jump through in order for us collectively to align with the highest timelines available to us. I also want to thank those of you that downloaded the new moon guide. There was definitely a revamp there as well. I've been getting some positive feedback that all the changes that I made were good. It is short and sweet and to the point, and now you have no excuse to not take the time and spend the energy to do the work within yourself. I've even decreased the price, specializing that 888 energy that we are working with this year. So realistically speaking, especially if you're a Patreon member and you get a 50% discount, there is no reason why this year you cannot invest in yourself. Please be doing the work. If you're not doing the work, put your helmet on, because it is going to be a bumpy ride for you throughout 2024. And of course, the other thing that I just want to throw out there is the 2024 complete astrology calendar that I've created that you can download off of my website. It has everything that you need, energetically speaking, to kind of understand where we're moving into some turbulence, where there's going to be major energy shifts. It is there for your, I'm going to say, guidance and assistance. So please take advantage of downloading that calendar so that you have it in front of you, so that you're not surprised with a lot of the things coming at us. And if you do download the calendar, it's handy to have it in front of you while listening to my 2024 year ahead overview, so that you can pencil in some of the bigger, major astrology aspects that we talk about in that forecast. So I just want to thank you all so much for being here, for the continued love and support. Okay, let's jump into the Ascension symptoms. First of all, the exhaustion is going to decrease. I know it's hard to even fathom at this point. We're low on energy, low on F's to give. We're not really as motivated and inspired as we were hoping to be coming out of that new moon energy. But keep in mind, like, we're still sitting under that dark phase of the moon. So to think that we're just going to wake up the next day and everything's going to be tickety-boo, that's just a delusion that we try to tell ourselves. It takes some time. And especially as we're moving through the final days of Capricorn season, we have to kind of understand that it is going to be a bumpy ride to make this transition. And I'm going to give you an analogy, because, you know, me and my analogies. I want you to think that here we're all on a plane. Okay. We're going somewhere. So we're setting ourselves up for this beautiful destination. And what happens when we get on the plane and we're all there and we're all seated? Well, there's a delay. So now we're all just sitting in the middle of the tarmac, waiting for that sign, waiting for that confirmation in order to actually take off. So Now we feel the plane moving, and it's a slow move. And we're trying to, look out the windows and figure out, are they taking us back to the airport, or are they taking us to the runway? Like, where are we? What are we doing here? All of a sudden, the speed starts to increase, right? We're accelerating, but man, is it ever bumpy. And it feels like we are just not going to get up to speed in order to take off before this runway actually runs out. And so we're holding on for dear life, and we're heavy. We feel that G-force, if you will, just pushing us down into our seats. And the turbulence that we're currently feeling, this is what's going to be this week. We are trying to lift off, and that liftoff energy comes with Aquarius season. And we will take flight when the sun and Pluto move into Aquarius season, but we're not there yet. We have a week of like building up that energy, building up that acceleration point, and the plane is just a shaken. It's windy out there. We're going against the wind. It doesn't feel good. We have a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainties. We're trying to hold on to the visual of this beautiful destination that we can't wait to get to. We just hope we can survive the flight. That's what it's going to feel like this week. Does it feel good? No. But do we want to get to that beautiful destination? Hell yes. So what do we got to do? We have to tell ourselves that we're safe, we're secure, we're going to be okay. We have to have a little bit of trust to put into that pilot to just kind of renew our faith that everything is all well, everything is taken care of. We are going to end up in the warmest of destinations and not sitting here freezing cold on this tarmac that, essentially speaking, we're questioning at this point if we are even going to be able to get this plane off the ground. And so, of course, that doesn't feel good, but it is necessary. And the Capricorn narrative is so pessimistic at times that we are essentially trying to fight the narrative of our own death. Who's sitting on a plane going through all this turbulence, having all these lights blinking and insecurities and uncertainties, and not question whether or not you're going to live or die, right? So this is where the existential dread of Capricorn season is going to come alive and be very, very strong coming at us. We have to remind ourselves that Saturn rules over this whole damn season. And yes, he is the traditional ruler of Aquarius season, so we're not shaking him off anytime soon, but he's not as heavy and weighted and negative and pessimistic in that Aquarius energy as he is in Capricorn energy. The Aquarian energy is like we are being freed of this limiting thought, this negative narrative, this turbulence, if you will. The Aquarius energy is taking flight, seeing that bigger, broader perspective, looking back at where it is that we once were, and realizing that, man, we almost lost our shit right then. We literally had ourselves dead in the water before we even got off the tarmac. And now this is like us feeling free, us feeling like we're actually going to get to our destination, us kind of saying, whoa, I never want to find myself in that situation again. I never want to have that narrative again. We're constantly progressing and improving in that Aquarius energy. And the higher we get, and again, I'm metaphorically speaking, talking about our vibration and frequency, talking about the ascension process, the higher we get in the air in this Aquarius energy, in this Aquarius season, the more insight, the more downloads, the bigger, broader perspective we're going to have, the better narratives we're going to have. Suddenly, we have nothing to do other than to think of our destination, what we're going to do, how this experience has changed us, how it will change us. We are no longer the versions of ourselves that we were back on that tarmac, right? So there's a lot of spirit lifting, a lot of intellectual problem solving. There's bigger, greater, grander aspirations and ideas that will come to us while we are in flight. But we're not there yet. We're still frustrated, stuck out on the tarmac, and we are building and increasing in our acceleration, and it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel secure. It doesn't feel like we're going to get off the ground. But lo and behold, we will. We just have to have a little bit of faith, and that's really hard to come by at this particular point in time. So that is my airplane analogy. Now, what comes along with the airplane analogy? Okay, so there's some clicking and popping in our ears, just as we would feel when we are kind of in that pressurized system in the plane. And with that, we're a little bit nauseous. We're a little bit upset. We may be even gagging on our own spit, choking on our own spit, gagging and choking on our own words. We're not in alignment. We're a little bit nervous. We're trying to mask it. There's a high level of anxiety that we are just trying to ignore at this particular point in time. And it comes with sporadic cold fits where you're just freezing to death, but yet you're sweating at the same time. Cold sweats are definitely going to be a thing. Temperature fluctuation will definitely be a thing as we're moving through the energy building of this week. This is a time where, you know how like in the whole airplane situation where time just seems to be really, really weird. It almost feels like we enter into a time warp when we're in a plane. Everything is kind of discombobulated. Well, we're moving into an accelerated point of this time warp. It's going to feel like the universe is hitting fast forward. And that may sound good, but I want you to, I'm going to paint a visual that I'm hoping is going to help. You know, when you're kind of watching a movie or whatever, and you want to fast forward and then you hit play and it's kind of frozen for a minute and everything's kind of off kilter. Maybe the voice doesn't align with the image or vice versa. And then it starts playing and everything's in alignment. And again, you're like, oh shit, I went way too far. I got to rewind. So now you're rewinding, you're watching all the imagery, you know, go back to the point in which you found yourself fast forwarding at. And now you're like, oh man, like I just can't seem to find the sweet spot here. So your fast forward, play, froze. Rewind, play, froze. Fast forward, play, froze. This is this week. We are going to have the back and forth seesaw effect in order for us to feel a little bit discombobulated, then stabilize before we take liftoff. And so that whole, you know, fast forward, play, rewind, fast forward, play, rewind, pause thing, that's going to be very discombobulating, very jolting. And it is going to feel at some points in time as if we are back in an old timeline, back in the old version of ourselves. And then what happens? Oh no, we didn't stay there for very long. I am definitely this new version of self. I definitely am in this new timeline. And then what happens? We're thrown back in the old timeline again. This is establishing. Now, yes, I know we've experienced the integration of the timeline and of this new self being anchored in. That's integrated. But we haven't necessarily lined up the voice with the image yet. That takes a little bit of time. It will be aligned when we move into Aquarius season, but we're not aligned right now. Again, the whole fast forward, play, frozen time, words not aligning with the image, rewind, go through it all again. This is very much what we're going to be experiencing here this week, and it's going to do an absolute number, not only on our headspace, but on our, I'm going to say heart space, but really I'm talking about the stomach. There is a certain level of nausea, certain level of just feeling sick to your stomach. And again, all that back and forth really doesn't help. But even more than that, our taste is changing. This new version of self has an acquired taste. And so some of the normal tastes, the normal foods that you once loved, that you once craved, they are going to just gross you out, and you are going to find yourself being called and drawn to different foods. And you can take a lot of hints and clues from that. If you're somebody who normally is, you know, really into sweet food and suddenly the sweetness is kind of turning you off, well, that's a little bit of a sign of a symbol that, you know what, shit's getting real, that you got to cut out that sweetness, that you got to be a little bit more straightforward, more blunt, more angered, if you will, in order to make that change. Same as if you're somebody who likes salty foods or savory foods, and suddenly that becomes a gag fest and you orient to, you know, a different type of food, that's going to say a lot about your mood, your perspective, your demeanor. So every single time that a new version of ourselves gets anchored in, and every single time that we move into a new timeline, there are great changes that come with that. Biologically speaking, in our physical bodies, mentally speaking, in our mental planes, emotionally speaking, in our heart space, and of course, spiritually, because this is what this is all about. We're reaching new levels of frequency, of vibrations. We're able to hold stronger electrical pulses and charge in our physical body without it destroying us. And this is what this whole process is all about. And if you've been taking a look at the Schumann Resonance over the course of this past week, we've just been bombarded with huge amounts of influx energies here. And this is, again, really testing whether or not we are capable of holding this much energy in this particular time and space. And for many of us, yeah, it really highlights the aches, the pains, the discomfort in our physical form, while it also shows us how freaking strong we've actually become. If we, under this particular energetic influence, even 2 years ago, we would be just beat down, not being able to move, can't think, can't speak, none of it. If you're experiencing those types of ascension symptoms on a frequent basis and you're new to this, that makes sense. But if you're seasoned to this particular, journey and you're still having these types of symptoms, it's time to double down and do the work. You're obviously not addressing the emotional blockages in your physical body, in your auric field, and that's why you're continuously being beat down by these energies. Now, I'm not saying that we're all supposed to be at a place where, these energies feel good to us. I think it's going to be a while before, collectively speaking, we're all on that similar page. But at the same time, unless you're newly awakened, you should be able to process these energies a lot faster, a lot quicker, with limited type of, I'm going to say, discomfort. Now, disclaimer, my ass was beat down under this new moon in Capricorn, as I know some of y'all felt the exact same way. Does that mean that we are unevolved, that we're not doing the work? No, it doesn't. It just means that this was an extra oomph of energy that we haven't received this amount of energy thus far. And so even if you've been doing this for a while, when the energy gets turned up and the CMEs are popping off and the solar flares are popping off, and they are at record heights, it is only natural for us to feel beat down like we first did when this whole awakening ascension process started, because we've never experienced this amount of electromagnetic frequency coming in from the cosmos and having to hold this energy in our physical bodies without it totally destroying us. So yeah, there's going to be aches and pains, and we're still in Capricorn season. So the aches and pains are being felt, threefold in our physical bodies because we're in an earth energy. It is about the physical body, the physical form. It is about the physical structure. We're having aches and pains in our bones. That's what Capricorn season is all about, structure. So there is going to still be some, I'm going to say, popping and clicking in our joints that is helping us to release those particular energy blockages. But I want to talk about the head space for a second, mostly because, again, Mercury on the move, he rules over our head space. And especially once we get into Aquarius energy, it's going to be, rapid processing, but we're not there yet. We're actually the lowest place that we could be in the Capricorn energy as far as our perspective and our narrative goes. Now, there's a lot of positives about Mercury being in Capricorn energy, but it does feel like we're heavy in our head, like we're bobbleheads, those bobbleheads that are way bigger than the body, just a bobbin. It feels like our heads are like 500 pounds at this point. And we are gaining clarity, but it isn't the kind of clarity that makes sense to us right away. It's kind of puzzling. It's almost like we are detectives, like we have to solve riddles and puzzles and, just solve crimes this week. We're constantly pushing the boundaries of what did we miss? What could we do where could we do things differently? How could I say this differently? Why can't I piece this together? Why can't I make sense of this? This is the type of energy, the type of vibe. But clarity is coming in it's just such a slow trickle that it feels like nothing's happening. And then once we move into that Aquarius energy, it's going to feel like our heads were just blown totally open, and we're going to be so overwhelmed and so overstimulated with the information coming in and the clarity trying to piece together the bigger, broader picture of what it is that we've been hoping for, that we're going to feel overwhelmed and exhausted once that particular energy comes. But the head is kind of, I'm going to say, congested. And because of that, we have this moving headache. It can manifest as migraines as well. I know I've had about, I'm going to say, a migraine since last Friday, if I'm being honest with you. It comes, it goes, it moves from one side of my head to the other. With the increased amount of energy that we've been receiving here on the earth plane over the course of this week, that is the definite explanation of why, we've been having such pressure on our headspace. But it's affecting our sinuses as well. It's affecting our teeth as well. It could even feel like you have a sinus infection because the teeth are so sensitive and in so much pain as well. Not saying that this is going to be there the whole week, but I definitely think that the transition back into this Capricorn energy that Mercury is currently doing, from now until, I'm going to say, at least Tuesday, is probably going to be the heaviest weight that we're going to be feeling in the headspace. I say that because, of course, we're approaching the first quarter moon in Aries energy. That's really going to help us out because the first quarter moon of any lunar phase is a point of action, a point of choice, a point of decision. And the Aries energy is it's fiery. It's the first sign of the zodiac. It's so initiating. It's so enterprising. It's so innovative. It's so passionate. It's so straightforward. Yes, it does rule over the head, but I feel like the fire energy is coming in to burn away the heaviness, burn away the funk, burn away the congestion that we are going to be feeling up into that particular point. So pay attention to, especially if you do have a moving headache, just map it. Kind of see where it's moving in your headspace. Of course, if you really want to get into understanding where this is stemming from, you can do the whole Chinese mapping system, different, cranial nerves to different organs in your body. And those organs correspond to a chakra system. And that chakra system corresponds to a vibration, a frequency, an energy, and emotion that may be trapped in your physical form. And thus why you're having the tension in which you're having in that headspace. I want you to pay attention also to whether or not you're having a low-grade fever. And it can be something that just comes and goes within a day. It can be something that comes every other day. But we are definitely trying to burn away the funk, burn away those negative narratives, burn away that limited perspective. And so that pressure on the headspace definitely manifests in a biological reaction of what we would consider a low-grade fever. But you're feeling fine other than the fact that there's a little bit of achiness, there's a little bit of, sniffling, a little bit of congestion, but otherwise it's not like you're on the couch sick with the flu. It's just that you feel that temperature shifting within you, and it definitely can manifest as that low-grade fever. I want to talk about the tension and the rigidity in our physical bodies. I kind of talked about it just because of the fact that we're still in Capricorn season. There's still a lot of popping, a lot of clearing that needs to be done. And this is breaking up the energy blockages that become very thick, very heavy, very weighted throughout the course of Capricorn season. And I would expect that, especially like Thursday, Friday-ish of this week, that is when we're going to feel popping, clicking, cracking the most, because again, we're leaving the weight of Capricorn season behind and we're preparing for lightness. We're preparing for, a little bit more flexibility, if you will, once we shift into that Aquarian energy. I want to talk about the fact that there may be some frequent bathroom trips that we're going to have to just kind of deal with. A lot of that is because, again, when our physical bodies are feeling kind of defensive and protective, like we naturally do here in Capricorn energy, we're all kind of, blocked up, rigid in our physical form. And that has a huge impact, if you will, on the bodily systems. And so as we're kind of, and again, I'm going to use the airplane analogy, we peed when we got on the plane because we wanted to be preemptive, but now sitting on the tarmac, we're nervous, we're having an anxiety. We know that we don't have to pee because we just did, but the sensation is there. So now we're going to the bathroom again just to see what the F is going on. not just gate number 1, but gate number 2. We do have the bubble guts, again, anxiety, worry, anticipation of all of the negative outcomes that this pessimistic narrative of sitting on this plane experiencing turbulence would plant seeds in our minds about. This is creating an uneasy state in our guts. So even though our dietary craving changes are taking place as well, again, gagging on our spit, choking on our spit, whatever the case may be, it still doesn't feel good. And it's really having a negative consequence below the belt, so to speak. And so definitely just be aware that you may be spending a lot more time going to the bathroom just in case on a preemptive type of schedule. We know in our mental plane that all is good. I shouldn't have this urgency. But again, when we're nervous, when things aren't in alignment, when we're really in a negative narrative, we do have a tendency of kind of triggering and activating these bodily systems to act on a nervous impulse and therefore create an urgent type of situation that we're constantly going to have to be addressing. So that might seem like a struggle. I want to talk about struggles here for a second. We are about to wrap up a very difficult power struggle. I don't want to get too caught up in the whole like Pluto moving into Aquarius thing, because there's a lot of hype out there in the spiritual community that this is going to be just an epiphany and a major change and a major transformation, and look out, like we're closing the door on 15 years of karma, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, okay, well, if you've been listening to me for any amount of time, you would know that this is nothing new. We dipped our toe into the Aquarian water here last year. We're not going to be thrown a curveball. We know what to expect. Yes, things are going to intensify in this Aquarius energy, but we're not staying in the Aquarian energy for very long before we retrograde and backtrack into the Capricorn energy. And just a reminder, we spend the majority of 2024 at that 29th critical crisis degree of the Capricorn energy. So I don't want to go too far into the Plutonian aspects of moving into Aquarius energy with the sun on the 20th, other than the fact that power struggles are going to become front and center. What do I mean by that? Well, we have a lot of power struggles going on. First of all, the first power struggle that I think we should address is the one between our ego selves and our higher selves. The one between the old identity and the new identity, the one between our heart and our head, the one between our inner realm and our outer realm, the one between us and the people around us, the one between our community, our collective, and those evildoers. Okay, the power struggles over our mental plane, the power struggles over our heart space. We see power struggles each and every single day of our lives. But if you want to get down to the nitty gritty of it, take a look in your chart where Capricorn energy moves into Aquarius energy. Whatever it is that you've been fighting with to gain power and control over in this Capricorn energy since 2008, that is going to become front and center here this week. Why? Because we're trying to close the door on this chapter. Are we going to close the door on this chapter? A little bit, but we're not slamming that door shut. We're sure as hell not nailing it in until November of 2024 when we set up an Aquarius energy permanently with Mr. Pluto. Again, another reason why I'm going to encourage you to take a listen to the 2024 year ahead overview and the 2 parts that I put out, because I go into depth and detail on what that actually means for us and what that actually means for the greater, grander societal structures that we've been trying to collapse and the power struggles that we've been watching taking place among humanity. So it's very, very intense energy, as Pluto always is. But we are going to be illuminated to the greatest of power struggles that we have personally been fighting as the week kind of progresses and we get to that cusp where we're ready to leave the Capricorn energy behind. We're ready to move into Aquarius energy. The power struggles are going to be an interesting awareness, an interesting realization, because we have a greater, grander perspective in that Aquarian energy on what we have to do when we backtrack into that Capricorn energy, and how it is that we can have like one final kick to the can, one final hurrah, if you will, how to make sure that we're slamming that door shut, how we're safely securing that door shut, and putting that particular power struggle behind us. But again, this is going to be an ongoing topic and theme until November of 2024. But it's good to know the war, the conflict that is our greatest source of, let's call it, energy, emphasis, attention at this particular point in time. I want you to pay attention to the dry patches that are showing up on your skin. Doesn't matter where you live, doesn't matter the humidity level, doesn't matter the temperature which you're currently living in, the dry patches will come forth. Now, of course, where they show up on your body is a huge indication on where it is that a little bit more nourishment is needed, where it is that a little bit more time, energy, and attention is needed on particular, not only areas of your body, but mental and emotional frames of mind as well. And this is going to be an indicator on where it is that we have to do a little bit more spiritual work, emotional work. When we see dryness, that kind of suggests that it's too hot. There's too much fire there. If you want to get into Ayurvedic medicine, you would understand how to counterbalance the elemental energies that kind of manifest in your physical body. If you've taken my elemental energy course on my website, you would understand that even greater. But when we find dry patches on our skin, that's where there's too much fire buildup. And what do you counteract fire with? Water. What is water? It's intuitive, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's nourishment. How do we renew and refresh our soul and our spirit? We do the things that we love to do that spark creativity, that spark happiness, that spark joy. So again, our physical symptoms is merely a roadmap to where it is that we have to clear out our energetic and auric field. So pay attention to where those dry patches are coming up. Yeah, it's good to put a little bit of cream on the physical form, but we have to kind of cream up the emotional, mental, and spiritual form as well. Those itchy spots on your body, of course, are suggesting that, there's a certain amount of healing going on, but I don't want to talk about the healing itchy spots as much as I want to talk about the itchy spots on your palm chakras and on the bottoms of your feet, your soul chakras. So why is this? Okay, so as I previously mentioned, we just had huge amounts of light, of vibration, of frequency penetrate the Earth's surface and therefore affect us greatly. We have a new version of self that we're operating on. We just got tested with the amount of light that we're able to hold into our physical body and hold space for. And the itchiness is because our palm chakras that we've been working on opening and activating, because that's how we step into our creator energy, our palms are being activated. They are opening up. That last blast of energy kind of removed any of the energy blockages that we could have had remaining in the left and right palms of our hand. Now, you may hear that old wives' tale that, an itchy palm indicates money's coming. Well, let's hope. We would love that. I don't think anybody's in a situation that we wouldn't want to receive more money. We love that. But we also want to understand that currency here in this physical realm, its equivalent is energy in the spiritual realm. And so we're increasing our money, our currency here in this physical form, just as we are increasing our energy in the spiritual form. The soles of our feet, of course, are going to be itching, and we're not going to be able to scratch that particular itch because the vibrations, not only that we're holding in our body, but that Mother Earth, Gaia herself, are now holding within her, they're changing. And our feet connect us to the earth. Our hands are kind of the projection of the information, the data, the insight, the power that we're receiving from the higher forms of intellect that we bring in from our crown. Our hands are how we use that energy. Again, we receive energy through one hand, we project energy out from the other. And so our hands are kind of the midpoint between the information that we bring in through the crown and the information that we bring in from the earth. And so our creative force energy, the dial, the volume is being turned up. And therefore, the frequency, the energy, the static electricity, if you will, feels like it's vibrating. It feels, you can feel it in your body. You can feel it in your hands. You can feel it in your feet. And so this is the reason of why it is that we are likely going to have itchiness, both in our palms and in the soles of our feet. The last thing that I want to talk about, and this is kind of a continuation of what it is that we've been going through for a couple of weeks here, but the eyes. So many of us are having eye symptoms, whether that is pain behind the eyes, watering of the eyes, whether that's itchy eyes, whether that's, sleep in your eyes, vibrating eyes. It all comes down to the fact that we have just leveled up. There's a recalibration that goes on in our nervous system, in our sensory inputs, in our physical form. And we are, I'm going to say, we're able to perceive a larger spectrum of light that we were not able to perceive earlier. And everything is more bright, everything is more vibrant, everything feels like it has a different hue to it, a different saturation to it. And this is because not only is our physical eyes changing, but that's due to the energetic realm changing. We are starting to gain clarity. We are starting to kind of, we're sitting in the plane and everything, we're going through this turbulence and everything is just shaking and our eyeballs are shaking with it. And that's okay. We don't want to kind of take a look around and see the ever-changing landscape until it's fully changed. And I'm going to throw this back at you. You know how earlier we talked about like the fast forward and then you play and then it freezes and then like it needs an alignment time and then you rewind. Well, when you're watching that, you know how you kind of zone out when you're fast forwarding and rewinding through a movie and everything's going really, really fast, but you're zoned out, your eyes don't even blink. That's a lot to process. So this is where your eyes start to burn and get dry and start to water. We're blinking, we're trying to gain clarity, if you will. And then when we actually hit that play button, it takes a minute to realize that the sound isn't in alignment with the actual visual. And so we're just kind of like squinting our eyes like, what? Is there something wrong with my brain? Is there something wrong with my eyes? Or is it the audio? Like, what is wrong here? Again, very much the mood and the attitude that we're all going to be in these final days of Capricorn season. And so the eyes kind of changing, yes, is a little bit uncomfortable, but is a super good indicator that we are at a different level of energy, different level of awareness, a different level of enlightenment. And this is the biological sign and symptom, let's say, of adapting to a brand new vibratory field where we are picking up on, again, an expansion of the light spectrum that typically up until this point, we weren't able to perceive at all. So we just have to be a little bit more patient with the process. So guys, I'm taking a look at my list. I've checked everything off. I feel like Santa Claus because I've checked it off twice. I thank you so much for tuning in. I thank you so much for showing up, not only for me, but for yourself. I want you to have a little bit of patience, a little bit of grace, a little bit of compassion and empathy for yourself as you move through the final days of Capricorn season, because Lord knows we're all going to need it. And if you're having a hard time, please be real and raw and vulnerable and express that in the comment section below. Myself or another beautiful soul will come to your rescue and remind you that you're not alone, you're not going through it alone, that there's nothing wrong with you, and that this too shall pass. We're at a very intense transition in life right now, and we just have to kind of give ourselves a little bit more leeway, a little bit more of a free pass than we normally would. So if you're not able to give yourself a pep talk, give yourself a reminder to keep your spirits up, to stay focused on the long-term goal, vision, and dream, then drop a line in the comments and we will come to your rescue. This is a beautiful community. We're all here to help each other out. We're not alone. We're not cray-cray. We're going to link arms. We're going to get off the ground together and we are going to have a beautiful flight and arrive at the most beautiful destination that any of us could ever even imagine. I thank you so much for tuning in. I'm sending you nothing but love, and we'll talk to you soon.